Welcome to the session, The New Economy in LA's Entertainment Industry. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this next session, Janet Yang, President, Fellow of the School of Film and Television at Loyola Marymount University. A Golden Globe and Emmy Award-winning Hollywood producer with deep roots in China, Yang is a member of the Board of Governors of the Motion Picture Academy, as well as a board officer chairing the Membership and Governance Committee. Welcome, Jenny Yang.
Today to discuss the new economy and LA's entertainment industry. We have a fabulous panel, and we all know that forever Southern California has been the hub of creativity and entertainment. We now want to look at how we're using our creativity and innovation to handle the pandemic. What pivots are we employing? What is the long-term prospect for our industry look like? So we have an amazing panel with us today. You may all remember a fantastic folk group from the 60s and 70s called Peter, Paul, and Mary. Well, today we're going to do better than that. We have Peter, Paul, and Celia. Paul Audley is the president of Film LA, and he is the one that has been organized production all through LA with different communities and organizations. So we definitely want to hear from Paul. We also have Celia Chavez, who is the president and general manager of Telemundo 52. She is responsible for the overall management of the station's broadcast, sales, and digital operations. Last but not least, Peter Szabo. He's the head of commercial partnerships with Spotify, where he oversees sales, partner development, and account management. So I'm going to ask some individual questions of our panelists first, and then later we'll hopefully have time for you to ask questions as well. Celia, let's start with you. What is the importance of the LA market for Telemundo, and what is unique about our audience here? How are you getting information to them about so much that is happening regarding the pandemic, the upcoming election, census, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for the introduction, and hello, everyone. So let me start by giving a little background on Telemundo. So Telemundo is a division of Comcast NBC Universal. Telemundo Network has been producing original content since 2002, and since then, it's become the #1 producer of Spanish language primetime content in the U.S., and now the #2 worldwide. We're actually, our content can be seen in over 100 countries in 35 languages. So our local station, Telemundo 52, is the West Coast flagship station of Telemundo Network. And the LA market is extremely important to the network. It is the #1 U.S. Hispanic U.S. Market in U.S. market, and over 8 million people, over 8 million Hispanics. So for our network, this marketplace is extremely important. Locally, we deliver nearly 30 hours of news, of local programming, and also additional content to the Spanish language-speaking community throughout Southern California. And we do offer actually more news than any other Spanish language station here in the LA market. So it's through our newscasts that we connect with our community. We provide our viewers the information that they need, especially in these critical times. There's so much noise and misinformation out there that now more than ever, it's very important for us as a news organization to provide our viewers the information that they need. Another important point to make about our station is that our newscast actually reflects the diversity of the LA market. We deliver information with an authentic voice. So we have from our news team, we have folks that are from Mexico, Venezuela, Peru, Honduras, Chile, to name a few. What this creates is that it really helps our editorial content to be culturally relevant and inclusive while remaining balanced. So we really understand that the Latino community content presents beyond entertainment. It's about how people feel. It's the emotions, it's the empowerment and the trust and joy, of course. And language is very important, and so that plays a huge role in the way that we connect with them. And so we take into consideration all of these emotions when we're producing content. So as a result, we have a very unique relationship with our viewer. We serve as the lifeline to our community, the community that we serve, and we're also a trusted voice. Our viewers turn to us for the information that they need to make decisions on their daily life, and we take this responsibility incredibly seriously. So the pandemic has highlighted socioeconomic inequities and disparities in the Latino community. Access to health care, food and housing insecurity, and unemployment have been big issues. And not to mention the fact now that we're also dealing with an election and a census year, which there's quite a bit going on. So in addition, the impact to the Hispanic-owned businesses has been severe. Of the 4.7 million small business in the U.S., 1 in 3 were severely impacted by closures due to COVID, and 50% of these businesses do not have a financial relationship with a financial institution. So as a result, many were left out from the Paycheck Protection Plan, and so only 3% received financial government support. And lastly, what we've learned is that in these unprecedented times is that communication, that commitment to be there and to take responsibility, inform our viewers of this critical information is more important than ever. And also the ability for us to amplify our message through our digital platforms it's been critical, and we really could not have done all of the things that we have done without using all of our platforms. That's it.
Thank you so much, Celia. I think anyone who lives in LA just through osmosis absorbs the Spanish language, and I plan to tune in more to Telemundo myself.
Good.
Peter, I love how Spotify is described as the mission to, quote unquote, unlock the potential of human creativity by giving 1 million creative artists the opportunity to live off their art and billions of fans the opportunity to enjoy and be inspired by it. That is a lofty mission indeed. How do you actually achieve that? And how does your presence here in LA help you with that?
Yeah, it's a lofty line and a lofty statement, and it's actually one of the reasons that I joined Spotify a little while ago, and really wanted to help with that mission. And I actually just learned yesterday that one of our former heads of music had described the ability for Spotify to be successful as the ability to blend science and art. And I think LA having that combination of so many things that you alluded to earlier as well is such a unique attribute for us. And so for Spotify, taking that idea of allowing 1 million artists the opportunity to live off their art and then billions of fans to find those artists, that really starts with getting the right content to the right people at the right time. And Spotify has been great at personalized content for a long time. They started by acquiring a company called the Echo Nest a year ago, and that allowed us to get really good pretty quickly at predicting what music each person would want to listen to. And I was actually at a company called Shazam, which a few people probably know of, for a number of years. And we were front and center as the shift was happening from downloads to streaming. And we got to work with pretty much every streaming company. And some of them were really, really excited to say, for $10 a month, you can now have every song in recorded history in your pocket. But that was a very logic-based argument. It really isn't about that. Spotify was one of the first to understand that for this to work, it's got to be personalization at scale. And Janet, the songs that you want are different than the songs that Paul wants, or different than the songs that Celia wants, and everyone wants the songs that they want, and that's all they care about. And so Spotify was able to get really good at this and make sure that our new users at the time were able to very quickly find songs that they wanted, and then other songs as a result of those first few songs that they liked. As you use the platform more, got to know you, got to suggest other songs to you, which was really important. And so that was great that we were able to do that. But then to allow the 1 million artists to live off of their art, it really meant that we had to help them make money. And so that certainly comes from Spotify's audience growing and royalty checks getting bigger as a result of more people listening more often and people being able to get money from that. But it also meant programs that we have like Fans First. And those are programs where our artists are actually able to communicate directly with their fans and sometimes sell them exclusive merch, sometimes do pre-sales to show, more so during COVID, offer them access to virtual shows, really unique opportunities. And LA obviously is one of the three main music centers in the US, along with New York and Nashville. And I love New York, but it's very transactional. LA being this hub of music and tech and creativity and entertainment, we've got to have a big center here. We put a big flag down in downtown with the opening of the new office there, actually right around the corner from where Warner Music did the same thing. So there's an amazing downtown Los Angeles music scene happening now, which is really great. And as this continues to evolve, we're really excited to tap into all of that from the Los Angeles perspective, because it's where producers, creators, artists all come together. And we're excited to be a part of that in a big way.
I was excited to learn that you're a neighbor in Santa Monica, and this very, very sleepy bedroom community has now become a hub of tech innovation. And
absolutely, I was making the joke that the term Silicon Beach to me is this kind of funny, line. I'm not the biggest fan of the term, but the fact that it exists is amazing. And Santa Monica, Venice, Marina, Playa, all having that renaissance and that convergence of all those is a great opportunity.
Thank you, Peter. Paul, everyone is curious about the state of film production here in Los Angeles and LA and elsewhere. What would you say is still drawing production to LA? What are some of the challenges? How are crews handling the pandemic? We need to hear. I and many others.
Sure. So, originally what brought people to Los Angeles as filmmakers over 100 years ago was the fact that we had this incredible weather. That's always the first thing people seem to talk about. But we also have to recognize that there is no place in the world with more stage space, over 5.2 million square feet. Nowhere in the world with more cast and crew. There's over 160,000 people directly employed by this industry. And because it's been around and all these people are involved, and you have the largest film office in the world in Film LA, it's very easy to move quickly and get things done. And the experience of the people who make film, but also the people who have to approve the ability to film in the region is so quick and rapid that it's made things really simple to do work here. Some of our traditional challenges, though, in the last 20 years have been around the incentive race. Worldwide, people offering money for the industry to leave Los Angeles created a major crisis until the state of California just a few years ago began to get in the competition. And through the California Film Commission's tax incentive program, we've seen a return of some of that filming. And that's really good news. I know we're going to spend some more time later on COVID, but clearly that is one of the things that has had a major impact this year and probably will for a couple years to come in how work is being done. The other thing right now that we're sort of coming back into the problem is available stage space. Despite the fact that we have more than anywhere in the world, the demand is up. And that means we're looking, and the good news is, from the point of view of the construction industry, the industry's building new stages. So we have a great, promising future moving forward, but we are in the middle of a pandemic and the crisis that creates, and I can go into more detail on that a little bit later.
Okay, but you're saying production is definitely on the rise, and many productions are actually happening right now here in LA.
Yeah, I can segue right into that, Janet, if you want. So what we've seen in the reports.
Yes, I'd like to.
Sure. The report is out today at noon. Will be our report on the third quarter of the year, and what we've seen is a gradual return of the industry back to work. Starting in June, when the state opened and the county put out its regulations, we began to see an increase in filming, but it was almost all very small production, commercials, reality TV, that kind of work. When the unions and guilds and the studios and the AMPTP came to agreements in late September, it opened the door for series, scripted television, and larger films to begin returning. So Q3, we're only about 54% of normal, of where we should be today, but we anticipate some growth through the year. We're not going to return to normal numbers, certainly in 2020, hopefully in the spring of 2021. But the impact on it has been, it takes longer to produce because of the requirements around safety. And there's an incredible array of protections, both for cast and crew and the community where filming is happening. So good news, it's starting to come back. The sort of sobering part of that is we do not believe it'll be back at normal levels in the next 6 months.
Thank you for that. All right, Celia and Peter, how has COVID impacted your operations? And what have been some of the challenges? What are you learning? And are there some long-term changes that you see for your future? Celia, why don't you go first? Ladies first.
For us at our station, definitely it was a major impact. We had to basically send home 50% of the staff. So that meant, we had to really move quickly. We also had to move on providing our news crews the PPE that they needed to do their job safely. And fortunately, we did that very, very well, and folks have been managing very well. I think because we are a news operation, the day-to-day in terms of how we deliver content to our viewers was not impacted because we're used to breaking news. So we're always basically ready for any challenge that may come our way. So that was very helpful. It was a bit more challenging on the sales side because obviously as soon as COVID hit, basically cancellations and no additional revenue was coming in. So we were definitely impacted in terms of revenue. But then what started to happen was clients were looking for ways to continue to advertise. So between our sales team and our marketing team, we were able to create customized creative that really spoke to what we were experiencing, and that actually helped us a great deal. So I'm happy to say that currently our revenue is actually getting back to normal. Obviously, the political, I think everybody has seen the ads left and right, so we're pretty much going through the same thing. But we've been very fortunate. I've been fortunate that I have a great marketing team that can jump on an issue and really tackle it and address it and make it successful. So all in all, I think we're doing very well, but it has definitely been a challenge.
All right, thank you, Celia. Peter, what are your prospects?
Yeah, it's been quite a year, and for us, we have obviously shifted to work from home since March, and we're fortunate that having the backbone of a tech company can do pretty much everything from home. So the challenges for us have been more of supporting our employees in that shift. And Spotify is a Swedish company, and it's amazing to see that European Swedish type of culture shine through. I've been here 6 months, and I've heard more about mindfulness in the past 6 months than probably I have the rest of my life. We really encourage our people to take their vacations. We tell them that it's more necessary than ever, even if it means you stay local. You just need to unplug. You need to do that because the pace of work, the timing of it, I've heard the term Zoom fatigue, and it's incredibly real when you start to think through how the pace of a day has changed. And for someone like myself, I used to love the rhythm of going to meetings, start in the valley, go to the west side, maybe downtown, depending on traffic, maybe not all in one day, but you bounce to different locations and you have a different rhythm to sitting in your car, decompress, and the ability to process is very different when you're just switching from one Zoom link to another for 6-8 hours straight. And so we're trying to be more proactive about how we plan our meetings, how we plan our time, and then being more proactive about collaboration. Those soft things get missed when you don't have time to just go grab a coffee with someone in the office or take someone to lunch. You really miss that. And then the theme of proactivity really continues to how we're going to get back to office life again at some point next year. The word proactive is really number one for us. It's, we are hearing from team members that miss the office environment, You mentioned osmosis of kind of osmosis within LA. I'm a big fan of osmosis learning, team camaraderie, team building in the office. We're missing that. But the idea of going back to Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 doesn't seem to be the right fit right now either. And so we're working on how that's going to evolve. And I'm talking to a lot of friends at other companies who are going through the same things of they want the office environment for that, team collaboration opportunity, but not have people be required to be there quite as much perhaps as they had been in the past. And so, likely some blend of that. We'll see how that goes. I will say an interesting thing about our LA office, which we didn't quite plan for directly at the time, but it actually has its own entrance. And so you start to recognize how important things like that are versus our New York office, which is in the World Trade Center, and the logistics of getting people in and out of high rises, which others in LA will deal with. But for us in the LA office, we're fortunate that we have a direct entrance. And so things like that will come into play. And so, we'll see how that goes. But during this time, really trying to be proactive about, taking care of our people in the best way that we can during this time.
Who would have imagined a year ago that we would have thought sitting in traffic was a luxury? That's how I feel now.
Who would have missed traffic? I know.
We long days, we had a little downtime, and we had an excuse for being late for a meeting. Now Zoom is, very precise time-wise. And do you think in the long term then, because a lot of the big tech companies have already declared that they will not require people to come back to the office, and others are taking a wait and see attitude, you think it sounds like you're saying there'll be some sort of hybrid perhaps?
For everything I've heard, that's what we're talking about. It's certainly not set, and it's very much a work in progress. I think that from that collaborative standpoint, there will be some version of it, but we'll see how it evolves. I know some companies have gotten very far ahead of it, and I've seen some of those announcements as well. And if that works for them and their teams, so be it. And I'm sure they'll figure out how to maximize it for their teams. We're trying to figure out how to best utilize that within our culture and our company.
The impact on commercial real estate, I think, will be strongly felt, no matter what. All right, Paul, back to you. You talked about the increase in production. That's good to hear. You're cautiously optimistic. What can we do, the private and public sectors, do to better collaborate? And, what do you think has been the economic impact? What should we know about moving forward, those of us who are cultural creators in particular, and anyone who is interested in production?
Yeah, we don't have any local numbers about the actual dollar impact. What we know is for the second quarter, virtually everybody in the film industry, whether they were in the offices or people who worked on sets, was sidelined, unable to work. Internationally, globally, just January to July, the number that has come out is $145 billion in losses in wages and productivity due to COVID-19. What we also know going forward, local in anywhere you're trying to film, is that there will be a little bit of increased cost in filming because of the time and the protection. So, for example, right now, where typically everybody would gather around Video Village to watch what had just happened or what was happening and would congregate, now it's coming in sort of a pods group where people go in, they do the set dressing and setup and lights and everything else, they leave. The directors, the actors, and some of the other folks come in, they leave, people come back in. So the time to produce, where we used to get permits for a 2-day shoot for scripted television, for example, we're now getting frequently requests for 3 to 4 days on location because of that time period. In the private sector and as private citizens, the critical need, not just for film, but for all business, is for people to pay attention to protecting each other. The great fear that everybody has, and certainly the film industry has, is that people who refuse to participate in protective measures could create another surge, and that shuts everything down again. So that's, to me, is the real partnership piece that we have to be aware of. The other thing, just to throw out, because people always think of the film industry as massive money-generating machines, there are over 6,000 businesses with 10 or less employees, many of which are minority owned, that are completely dependent on the film industry. And our concern is the longer we drag out and are unable to recover, the more we may lose those critical small businesses that Celia also mentioned earlier are not eligible for many of the protections. So as companies, as individuals, it's about being together in trying to recover the entire region and support every individual and their companies.
So you mentioned certain locations have to be locked down for not just 2 days, but maybe 3 or 4. That's perhaps doubling the cost in many departments. I've spoken to others who've been working on productions. A hair and makeup team has a very hard time doing its job with social distance. And then if anyone is infected, then that person is immediately removed, all the people that's been in contact. So they have to double, triple, perhaps the size of the crew. That's a very, very significant increase in the production cost, isn't it? Do you have any data about that?
We don't have any firm data because some of this production at this level is just starting to come back. But you're correct in what you're saying, that these are the issues. They're having to spend more time and therefore pay people for longer periods. The sort of good news on the stats and data we do have is that the protections put in place by the county and then by the unions and guilds through these agreements has resulted in a very, very few situations where a case of COVID was discovered on set. Almost all of them have been discovered prior to report to work, so they've not had to shut down. The 1 or 2 cases we've had since June where production actually ceased was because the lead actor or a key a crew member was the person who tested. It wasn't about a spread on a set. So the protections for cast and crew and the community we're filming happening is working really, really well, and that's really good news. But it is a more expensive time to produce.
I have to say, LA seems to be doing a great job with testing. Many people I know, including myself, have been tested. It was easy, it was fast, and at least there's that now for the crews. So constant. I know there's just constant testing, but yeah, not the same coziness that we like on film sets that we've grown to love.
And if people are interested in what that looks like, on Film LA's website, we have a COVID-19 resource page, which includes all this information we've been talking about how to do work in the COVID era.
Oh, that would be helpful. Celia, what changes have you seen in just the way people consume content? You know, we're all at home and we're more attached to our devices now than ever. Have you seen changes in how they've responded to your content? And do you think, again, there are some trends that you expect to see?
So at the height of the pandemic, our local news and digital platforms saw the most significant increases in viewership. I think this reaffirms how viewers rely on local news for information. So we are still very critically important. But in terms of viewer habits, you know, there's been a great deal of shifting to the streaming services, as you all know. So just 1 year, there was 30% growth in Hispanics that were going through live streaming. So what's happening is now our NBC Universal has responded to this need or this demand, if you will, and they launched Peacock in July of 2020. And so in addition to all of the great NBC Universal content, we also have over 2,000 hours of Telemundo content. So yes, there's a great shift to streaming, but there's something to be said, I think, about, you know, as local stations, that the value that we bring, especially being in the front lines. When there's anything that needs, you know, covering and needs information, any type of disaster, you know, we have a pandemic under our belts. You know, they come to local for that information. So streaming is great, but they can't provide the service that a local station can. So I'm sure more of that will continue. It's very competitive.
Okay, your sound unfortunately is coming and going, but I think we got most of that. You mentioned that you had to let a lot of people go, and yet are you increasing the amount of content at the same time? And what kind of content are you making more of or less of?
Well, the team the 50% of the staff that we sent home, they're working from home, so there's still a great deal of production. So we're still seeing a great deal of productivity. I mean, our marketing team, they've been amazing. They've been producing topicals. They've been producing commercials. They've been producing all sorts of different content. We actually just launched a series of virtual chats to address the day-to-day issues that our community is actually going through. So there's been a great deal of collaboration, although we're not all together, but we're working very, very effectively, and that's to really support the community in any way that we possibly can.
All right. Thank you. I hope most of you heard most of that. It's been so. Peter, I'm just curious. First of all, I'd like to know what is the long-term impact of Spotify in the music industry. I mean, we already see the trends, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on the explosion of podcasts, which started pre-pandemic. It's been quite interesting, and I know that a lot of content creators like myself, we look to podcasts as IP for possible adaptation. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I'm hugely bullish on podcast. I actually started my career back in radio in Boston, and we used to put up interviews from our morning show as interviews, and then somehow they just started being called podcasts, and this whole podcast movement started, whatever that was, 15, 20 years ago. And fast forward to Spotify, obviously being the leader in streaming music, but starting to work in podcast because it's great content. It's just great audio content. And so really Spotify's mission shifts to being more of the audio leader. And in the same way, podcast makes a lot of sense. You can do amazing shows, you can do content. We just launched a new series of shows this morning that better incorporate music and talk in a new hybrid style format, which is really exciting. And so the future plays more into that idea of allowing these creators, in this case shifting beyond just artists, musicians, to be podcast hosts, creators, to also make a living off of that art as well. And the great thing within Spotify is the podcasting ecosystem, has been so fragmented before. And I had a lot of friends who produce podcasts, and I'd ask them how it was going, and they'd say, I think it's going okay, but we put it up over here and we don't know how many people listened. And because of that, we really can't make any money on ads. So it's hard to do. And so for the first time ever, it's great that Spotify took all of that in, and we now have consolidated all of it, where you can now have the content, the production of it, and the promotion of it all under one roof. And so those three things coming together, I think, really give Spotify this great advantage. And then as it continues to evolve, we can use this data to help both the creators and the listeners. And as I'm sure you've seen, it allows for small podcasts to come in, build an audience, grow an audience from a grassroots level. But it also allows for big players like The Ringer to come in, Joe Rogan, Michelle Obama, to come in and have these shows with the big platform that Spotify has. And then with our data, be able to connect all of these shows to listeners that may not have heard of it as well. And so that combination, I think, is really exciting as we continue to evolve the platform overall.
I do really believe that streaming has meant there's less disenfranchisement, because everyone can find that they like. And yes, it's amazing, the explosion of content, both audio and visual wise. So thank you for that. I think we all like Spotify very much. Paul, what do you think is LA doing in particular about diversity and inclusion? As a board member of the Academy, we talk so much about that as the trend, and there's been a lot of buy-in from all the studios, the streamers, the production companies about the importance of this. What has LA been doing in that regard?
Well, I think like most of the world or most of the country, there was a long time when everybody looked to the unions and the studios to solve the problem on their own. And I think the difference is, for several years now, there's been a movement toward finding ways to increase access to underrepresented groups. So there's several things. The city and county both have workforce development task forces now that are working on ways and funding sources to help bring people in who traditionally don't get access to the film industry. The California Film and Tax Credit has a part of its program that requires some work in this area and mentoring or other financial contributions. We've been asked and are assembling a list of organizations that are out there now, terrific groups like Ghetto Film School, which works with underrepresented high school kids to give them access, New Filmmakers LA, which provides opportunities to not only mix, mingle, and network, but actually to showcase film from underrepresented communities all year long. And Film LA supports a lot of those financially. So the underrepresented film communities festivals have been supported. And so there is a movement finally toward recognizing that this needs to be a holistic approach and not sort of passing it off to the hiring factor to make the difference, because we have to give access, bring people forward, and let them live the dream so that they can find the reality when they come time to actually get into this career.
I find it to be just such a lovely convergence that LA is so diverse by its very nature, and it is the heart of the entertainment industry. So there's talent abound to draw from, and that has been becoming more evident each day, I think.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions from the audience I'm going to throw out, and anybody can answer. How is the rise of consumer media reflected in increased job opportunities for local communities, or has it had any impact at all? Anybody?
Well, I think the county recently did a study on film employment and where it is. And obviously, the more it grows, and in particular with these new initiatives to bring more people in, I think we have the opportunity to see more and more people. And clearly, in the last few years, the explosion of streaming content has opened up a lot of job opportunities. That's what put the pressure on soundstage space and other things and caused us to grow to now, when we come back to being fully staffed at 108 people, we're the largest film office in the world. So I think that the doors are open. Obviously, we have to get past the pandemic before the opportunities become real. But all of these changes seem to be, and the increase in technology related to filming creates whole new openings and doors for people in the industry.
Absolutely. At this point, I think there's zero barriers to entry in terms of if you want to create something, all you need is a phone. And that certainly helped. And I do think the awareness on many of us, and whether it be the unions, whether it be the financiers of productions, has really changed quite a bit. And I think many of us are very grateful for that. Anybody else want to address that question before I move on to another? Just job opportunities. I think it's a lot is unknown at this moment in time. A lot is unknown, but all right, we'll wait for some recovery before we bring in more data. So what is the future of entertainment? You know, whoever has a call in, and what are some lessons that we may have learned through the pandemic?
The future, sorry, you cut out for a second there. The future of entertainment as like large?
In general, that's the question, is what is the future? It's a little broad, but you know, perhaps you can speak about your specific arena, how the future, and are there lessons to be learned from the pandemic?
Yeah, I think for music, I can go down a couple different paths here. One is the realization of how much people love live music. It's one of those don't know what you got till it's gone moments, but the number of conversations I'm having with people who are saying, gosh, I just wish I could go to the Troubadour and see that amazing intimate show, or I can't wait to go to Staples Center and see my favorite bigger act, or you know, even SoFi Stadium was supposed to have a big, massive, whatever they hold, 60,000 people, huge concert to kick it off. I think Taylor Swift was supposed to open. It has to be postponed. All those things coming together really are showing people how much they value that. And we were speaking with a producer artist named Jack Antonoff a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying that to him, with his artist friends, it feels like just this massive pent up demand building so much. And his prediction, which I agree with, is the 1 to 2 years after this gets resolved in whatever way we get back to live music is going to make for this renaissance of live shows. And you're going to see artists giving it their all from so many different perspectives because they're so grateful to be back out there getting that live interaction with fans, which you can't get any other way, and fans being so grateful that they get to be back there enjoying that in the same way. And so I think some of these stopgaps of drive-in shows or virtual shows are all fine. And I actually think that some of them will continue in a bigger way, or I should say an extended way, even after COVID dwindles. But the idea of the sweaty club as that packed in place being part of the event, not just, oh, that's a nice thing we had to go to a place with other people. That's part of it, and you grow to appreciate that. And so I think that's one of the big lessons is you really appreciate some of the things that you miss and then want to really have them back when you can.
I think you nailed it. I certainly feel it. I mean, we have incredible venues in the city. I mean, Hollywood Bowl, Greek Theater, and tons of smaller venues and outdoor concerts galore and whatnot. Let's hope that's the case. I long for that day. I think many people do. Anybody else have something to say about that? The future, how the pandemic has perhaps changed how you do things?
I think that the film industry had to learn to do business differently in order to come back to work. And in many cases, they've found new efficiencies of ways of people that they never would have done before, of having someone back at the studio remotely connected watching instead of being physically present. The real question is, will the tradition return, or is the new method of doing business going to stick when the pandemic passes?
Do you think it has more impact? Sorry. I was just going to ask a quick question regarding that. Do you think it impacts smaller films more or larger? Because on the one hand, smaller films are more contained and maybe can handle the social distancing better, but larger films have bigger budgets and can buy the extra time and the extra crew.
Well, the smaller productions have not had to really do that expansion of time, mainly because they are small and they're what has been present in commercials and reality television. They are able to change on the dime pretty much and make a change and move even locations. So I think it's going to be in the larger scale work where we've discovered the ability to do things remotely that we always thought we had to have a lot of bodies present on set or on stage. That's where I think we may see a long-term difference.
Interesting. Thank you.
Celia, if I could add to that, I feel the same way. It's I know that I hope you guys can hear me. It's basically the same for us. There's been a lot of lessons learned. We never thought that we would have, our anchors anchoring from their homes, or producers producing from their homes. So it's been a lot of lessons learned of things that we could potentially do. Now, do we want to go that route? Probably not. I'd like to have the anchors in the studio and the producers here as well. So, there will be some functions that will definitely, continue to work remotely. But I think the majority of the operation, I see it eventually coming back. Not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but there's an important thing in terms of collaborating and in the newsroom and getting the engagement and understanding the stories. So I think for us, it's a matter of time before we start getting back to normal. And hopefully it's soon. I miss people. I need that human connection.
Yeah, I think we all do. All right, this is for everyone as well, but maybe to Paul, it's the most. I'm sorry, to Peter, it's the most relevant. What are your companies doing to address consumer privacy while still making strides in improving customization? I'm sure you all know this is a hot button issue these days. That Netflix documentary, Social Dilemma, makes some very pointed, comments about that. What is Spotify doing? And all of you can answer as well.
Yeah, it's certainly a hot topic. If only through my wife going around our house and literally turning the microphone off of every Google or Alexa product. And so it's a weekly discussion in our house. I personally am okay with a lot of these trade-offs because I love the value of what you get for it. And I will happily do that. She's on the opposite side of it. So it's a fascinating discussion. The Spotify side, I think, centers a lot around again, this personalization of content and how can we do that in the right way for our listeners in a more scaled way. And I would say that we've gotten to a point where a lot of the playlists that people have gotten have been with that trade-off, and I think people want that. I think as the content expands, as what we were talking about with some of the other areas, we're going to have some other conversations to have. I think we have an amazing team that's looking at all of the aspects of this, and again, I'll use that word proactivity. Really looking consciously at what the trade-offs are. Doing user groups and focus sessions as needed with these, and making sure that we do things that fit that balance that we're trying to achieve. And so I think it's an evolution that we're going through with this, and there's probably not going to be a quick right answer. It's more of just figuring out what the right solutions are as we continue to go forward with it.
Does anyone else want to address this topic overall, whether or not it relates to exactly what you're doing? But this is on a lot of people's minds these days.
Yeah, we don't get directly involved with the subscribers to streaming or other networks. It's not part of what we do, but I think all businesses are looking at this question. So we have constant reevaluation and a lot of protections into people who subscribe to our feeds, to people who subscribe to our online permit system, et cetera. It's just a business thing these days, is you have to constantly update and protect any information you have that is personal for our customers, and we keep doing it.
Yeah. And for us on the Telemundo side, we've actually gone through quite a bit of training since I think it was last year. So there's a great deal of focus and attention that's going into this. But I think we still have to go through additional steps. But overall, I think corporate has done a really good job at bringing this issue to the table and addressing it with the different Telemundo stations and NBC Universal stations.
All right. Okay, well, we're getting close to the end time, but I wanted to give each person a few minutes to just make any closing remarks, anything you want to address to our audience, and about LA in particular, or about your work in general. Anything any of you wants to say? Please jump in.
I'll start. So I just want to say thank you. Well, I'm already talking. I'm jumping in there. Sorry about that. So listen, I just wanted to say thank you for this great opportunity. It's LA is such an amazing place to live and work and play. Obviously, we're all very, very challenged, and I think we're all doing the best to just move our city forward while keeping our community safe. So. From our end as a news organization, we're really committed to doing that, and look forward to a day when we can actually go to the concerts and do all the great things. Go to a Dodger game. That's something that I really miss. But it's in these difficult times that we also find out how great our teams are and how innovative and how creative we all can be. So I think it's brought a lot of terrible things, but at the same time, it's also shown us a lot of really great traits about ourselves and our teams. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Thank you, Celia.
Yeah, we're
Peter?
really pleased to be able to reach an audience that we don't always get to reach in forums we do for the film industry. And a couple of things is we've had a lot of inquiries lately about data, and we have a research department that puts out incredible reports. They're all public and online at filmla.com, from everything from soundstage studies to what's happening internationally in the film industry. But in particular now, the message that I think we want to be clear is that Film LA is a private organization under contract to a multitude of cities and the county, school districts, tries to balance between those client needs, the industry needs, and the community. And right now, that community leg of that tripod is critically important to us to let them know that the county, the industry, and the governments, including Film LA as its agent, are really, really working hard to make sure that this vital economic engine for the region can come back to work safely for the cast, the crew, and the community. And that message is really important if we're going to be able to re-energize the industry in greater Los Angeles. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And we have always people available to answer questions. Feel free to give us a call.
Thank you so much, Paul. Peter?
Yeah, and I'll add quickly that, it's whoever coined the term necessity is the mother of invention. Really, man, smart person there. But it's amazing how so many people have figured out new ways to do things, and some of our biggest artist partners who have actually said, it's about a 1 to 2 month kind of period of lull, of uncertainty of what is this, how's this going to happen, and then certain artists said, I'm going to channel this and use the creativity in a different way. And Taylor Swift put out an album that was amazingly successful. This band that we know called the Struts actually went into a house for 10 days and recorded a song together, the four of them, with their producer John Levine, in the same place for all the 10 days. It's the only time they had ever done that, and they actually looked at that as an opportunity. And you were talking about technology and the opportunity to share files. We're hearing a lot more of that. And so as that continues, I think we're going to see some interesting creative things come out. Paul mentioned the first asset of LA is weather. I hear so many of my friends from New York saying they're going to come out during the winter. If you have an Airbnb in Palm Springs or Santa Barbara, lucky you, you're going to get to charge some good rates, I think, through the winter and get a lot of people coming out from the East Coast. And we'll use that competitive advantage from LA along with that collaborative spirit and work through this. And as everyone's alluding to, when it gets back to something resembling normal, it'll be great. But until then, I think everyone's really leaning into figuring out how you can make the most of it even during this time. And LA is the place I'd want to do that.
I have to say, it sounds like we all share a love for Los Angeles. In the past, I think LA had been criticized for being maybe very geographically challenged, and geologically, by the way. But it's looking better and better each day that we speak. And yes, many people want to come out. We can often walk out our door and not have to touch elements and be in the same hallway and whatnot. And it's a wonderful city. And perhaps this pandemic will give us a fortified desire to hang together and come together as a community. And so I very much appreciate Mayor Erica Garcetti and the LA Chamber of Commerce for this together. It's been such a pleasure having all of you on this virtual webinar. And I hope that everyone stays safe and healthy, and let's get through this together. Thank you again for being with us.
Thanks.
Peter, Paul, and
Thank
Celia.
And thank you, Dan. This was great. Thank you to the Chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for The New Economy and LA's Entertainment Industry session. Up next is our final session of the day, a mayor-to-mayor conversation, local leadership in a pandemic. We will see you back at 12:30 p.m.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thanks, everybody. We're off,
All right. That's great.
Bye.
All right.